Greetings from Navdanya in Doon Valley in the Himalaya in India. I am Vandana Shiva and I speak from our beautiful mango orchard where we grow 9 varieties of delicious Mangifera indica. I have grown up in an India of diversity, of abundance. And today we witness multiple crises, each of them connected to each other. They are not separate. The biodiversity disappearance, the destruction of our soil and our water, the destruction of climate stability, I call it climate chaos and climate havoc, the destruction of our health and our livelihoods, they're all interconnected. And while the crises are interconnected, they're all rooted in a separation of humans from nature, the illusion that not only are we outside nature, we are superior to nature, we are her masters. This was, of course, the so-called civilization mission of colonization. Those who lived as part of nature, with Pachamama, with Vasundhara, as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth family, were treated as primitive, who had to be civilized and torn apart from their homes, from the idea of the earth as our common home, turned into refugees everywhere. In the process, we have created the multiple crises, which was then fueled and accelerated with oil. Once empires of oil were built, they found their way everywhere. They found their way in the food we eat, the water we drink, microplastics in every nook and corner, in the oceans, in the soil. And petrochemicals, which are oil transformed, didn't just enter our food system, it transformed the food system. And this transformed food system is then the driver of most of the multiple crises we face. Because the agrochemicals, which are petrochemicals, which are made of oil, they don't work with earth systems. They don't work with the flows from the soil to the plants to our gut. They don't work with the beautiful relationship between the biosphere and the atmosphere. And this destabilization is at the root of the climate crisis, the root of the disappearance of biodiversity. We have created instruments of warfare, instruments to kill the insects. We call them insecticides. Instruments to kill plant life. We call them herbicides. Fungicides to kill the very basis of life in the soil. And this very artificial idea of separation from the earth goes hand in hand with redefining Terra Madre, Mother Earth, as a living system, and now describing her as Terra Nullius, the empty earth, the dead earth, the dead soil, soil as an empty container for pouring nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium into. And we turned these myths into science and ensured that through coercion and force, every farmer was forced to adopt the Green Revolution. I was forced to turn to the Green Revolution to understand why I did Punjab, where I did my MSc Honours in Physics, and which was prosperous in the 70s, became a war zone in the 80s. 15,000 people were killed. Why did people have to die in the city of Bhopal when a pesticide plant leaked? I asked myself, what is the Green Revolution? Where did the pesticides come from? And in finding the answers, I realized they come from warfare. They come from a mentality of being at war with the earth and her biodiversity. But they also come from instruments of war. Agrochemicals are instruments of war. And they're killing life on earth. As my book Soil Not Oil analyzes, the shift from a worldview centered on soil to a worldview centered on oil has given us more than 50% of the greenhouse gases. 14% in the very production with fossil fuels and fossil chemical fertilizers. Another 20% by destroying the amazing Amazon for soya bean, the Indonesian rainforest for palm oil. Because everything in agriculture has been reduced to a commodity, part of which goes for biofuel, part of it which goes for animal feed. The food cycle is forgotten. Food rights are forgotten. Food as a currency of life is forgotten. And there's another 20% that comes from shipping food around the world, when we should be growing food everywhere, because the earth can give us food everywhere, different kinds of food, because the earth's climates are so varied. You can't grow our beautiful mango in Europe. But the diversity of climates give us diversity of crops and foods and diversity of cultures. And that is what we celebrate. Among the 20% of destruction is food miles and resources and energy used for ultra processing, used for packaging. So you have plastic and aluminium everywhere. But it is not just waste that is littering this planet. It is waste within us. The food cycle is a very subtle cycle, created by soil organisms, feeding the plants. And when we eat biodiversity, and we eat food that's rich in diversity of nutrients and phytochemicals, our gut microbiome, which is 100 trillion microbes, is healthy. Navdanya is a movement that protects biodiversity. We promote ecological regenerative farming. And our research over the last few decades, 35 years now, has shown that native seeds, which were called primitive, just like we as colonized people were called primitive, are actually more nutritious. We've just finished a study comparing the so-called modern varieties of rice with the diversity of indigenous rices. And depending on what we measure, the calcium, the iron, the zinc, 180%, 190% more nutrition in our indigenous varieties. Yield is such a misleading measure because it only measures the weight of a commodity that leaves the farm. It does not measure the state of the soil, the state of the farmer. It definitely has no capacity to measure the quality of the food and how much health it brings us. So first, indigenous seeds have more nutrition. Diversity of seeds have more nutrition. The more we intensify plants together and biodiversity, rather than intensifying chemicals, we actually have more nutrition and health per acre. So in Navdanya, we do not measure yield per acre, which is meaningless. We measure nutrition and health per acre. And by taking care of the soil and intensifying biodiversity, our work with farmers is showing we could feed 2 times India's population by regenerating the soil and regenerating biodiversity. The earth and humans are not in conflict. We are part of the earth. Everything we do that is right for the earth is good for human beings. The health of the planet and our health is one health, because we are deeply interconnected. And every crisis that disrupts this connection is both disrupting the health of the planet through climate change, through biodiversity erosion, through toxics everywhere, and it is creating the epidemic and pandemic of chronic diseases. I call climate change the metabolic disorder of the earth, because the earth is living. She maintains her health. And when we feed her junk energy, her systems of maintaining the metabolism are disrupted. The same process that is destroying the metabolism of the earth is destroying our metabolism. All the sicknesses that are related to a bad food system are metabolic disorders. Scientists are finding this out. So not only are the diseases interconnected, all aspects of the ecological crisis is interconnected. But even more importantly, the solutions to all the crises are the same. The solutions lie in realizing we are part of the earth, returning to the earth as we name our annual course of 1 month where we learn about living seed, living soil, living food, living economies. And when we take care of the soils give us more food and more nutritious food. The mycorrhizal fungi seeks out the nutrition wherever it is, and there is more nutrition in the soil when we feed the soil. Our soils have increased. Nitrogen 100%. Soils being fed on chemical fertilizers have lost their nitrogen 22%. And zinc and magnesium and calcium all increased through care for the soil and organic farming, all disappearing with chemical agriculture. 70 to 80% of the nutrition of food has disappeared. We are eating nutritionally empty commodities. And in addition, we are eating toxics in that food system because chemical fertilizers require monocultures. The disappearance of diversity leads to disappearance of nutrition. As Hippocrates said, let food be thy first medicine. And as Ayurveda says, Annam sarva aushadhi, food is the first medicine. And food is the first medicine when it is grown in ways that take care of the earth, that increase our biodiversity, and therefore increase our diet. We used to eat 10,000 species of crops. Now we eat different forms of processed commodities, maybe 10 of them, where all the nutrition is pulled out and sold as another supplement. And we get empty food, nutritionally empty food, loaded with toxics that are giving us the cancers, the diabetes, the obesity, the neurodegenerative diseases. All of them are connected to not respecting the health of the earth and our health and realizing that they are one. Our work is also showing that in the soil lies the answers of all the problems that oil has created. As I say, on a boiling planet, it's time to turn to soil and give up our addiction to oil. Researchers who work on this relationship with the biosphere, the soil, and the climate is showing that we can reach the 1.5 degrees centigrade limit and pull out the gap of 32 gigatons, 34 gigatons, by working with the plants and their photosynthesis. And through the photosynthesis and the free energy of the sunlight, they take the carbon dioxide, turn it into the biomass, turn it into the carbohydrates that feed us. Even more importantly, they turn it into our breath, our oxygen that we breathe. This is the true carbon capture solution. And while it does this, it's giving us life. It is giving us solutions to the climate havoc. And as the carbohydrates feed the soil organisms, and the soil organisms feed the plants again, we have more food, we have more nutrition. Mycorrhiza rich soils, and our soils have 3,600% more mycorrhiza since when we started this Navdanya farm. The mycorrhiza is increasing nutrition of all the important nutrients, the zincs and the magnesiums, the calciums, the ions, by giving it to the plant. The symbiosis between the plant and the mycorrhizal fungi is so vital to our health. But 1/3 of the emissions are being stored in the mycorrhizal fungi. They feed us with health. They solve the climate crisis. It is time to give up the mechanistic idea of the earth as a dead matter. It is time to give up our separation from the earth. It is time to give up our blindness to living systems. We need to shift from disciplines that grew from oil and fossil fuels to the sciences of living systems that indigenous people held, and new sciences are telling us that everything is alive. This tree is alive. The soil on which I stand is alive. The microorganisms in the soil and in my gut are alive. Let us take care of life on earth. Let us give up the fossilized mind and the fossilized heart and the fossilization of our thinking that the age of oil has given us. The age of soil invites us to grow life again. The age of soil invites us to work in partnership with all species and overcome the despair that is spreading everywhere. And while we do that, we grow food for everyone so no one is hungry. Food security is regenerated everywhere. We grow soil, we grow water. Our water levels on this farm have risen by 70 feet. We grow the insects and pollinators who give us 1/3 the food we eat. We grow back the relationship between the biosphere and the atmosphere and have a chance of bringing back climate equilibrium and climate stability. We can become human again by becoming part of the earth again. I wish you the best.